The great poet Ralph Waldo Emerson once said in his masterpiece, Self-Reliance, "It is the harder, because you will always find those who think they know what is your duty better than you know it. It is in the world to live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after our own. But the great man is he who in the midst of the crowd keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude." Tonight we honor 4 individuals who have accomplished many great things in their lives. Whether they have gone far or stayed near home, each one of them has done the best that they could with what they were given. These honorees realized that they could not follow the crowd and had to forge their own path in life, their own path to success. These 4 individuals have contributed their own unique verse and are all bound together by their past with Sydney High School. And now we have the honor of inducting them into our Hall of Honor.
The Hall of Honor is a mixture of alumni, retired employees, and supporters of our school district. Many of the alumni have excelled outside of the Sydney area, while others stayed local to make a difference at home. Some of these locals made an even bigger contribution through teaching in the district, including Linda DeVelvis, SHS class of 1968, who was the first inductee to teach full-time at the elementary, middle school, and high school levels in Sydney.
Ever hear of Miss Duckworth or Miss Phoebe Yates Pember? If you looked inside these living history characters who were frequent visitors to her classroom, you'd find innovative educator Linda DeVelvis. She taught in Sydney for 29 years, beginning in 1973, with 3 years of special education at Central Elementary and concluding with middle school and high school social studies, including many gifted and talented classes. Organizing class trips to our nation's capital and directing plays were among her extracurriculars.
I also enjoyed the trips to Washington, D.C. I got those started again in 1990. So I'm very proud of that legacy as well, because I think that was a great opportunity for my own children. Even said, "Mom, that's one of the highlights that they can think of."
She received numerous awards during her career and made a pair of presentations to statewide groups regarding the development of living history characters. 2 of those awards fall into the elite category. The Ashland Teacher Achievement Award is given to 10 Ohio teachers annually from hundreds of candidates. National Board Certification is an advanced teaching credential earned by a small percentage of the national teaching population.
Linda has been active in Charity League and community theater, but is best known for over 2 decades of service as a volunteer, trustee, and officer of the Shelby County Historical Society.
She is the 2nd member of the 1968 graduating class to join the Hall.
What's your fondest moment here as a teacher at Sydney High or Sydney Middle School or any teaching at all?
Well, ironically enough, the very first thing that comes to my mind is out here, a situation where I had a kind of a group of kids who were not highly motivated. They were just in the class to be, it wasn't a history program, it was kind of another type of gimme class, if you will, and instead of just letting them slide up by, I remember one student in particular that I really was pushing and pushing because I thought this kid has something, he has potential. And at conference time, we had an individual conference, just the 2 of us, before parents came in later that day. And he thanked me, and this was very unusual for junior high and high school kids to thank a teacher. Mm-hmm. He really said, "I appreciate you really pushing me to do what I know I can do, to do better." And he said, "And not only am I doing better in this class, I'm also doing better in all the rest of my classes." And I was very, that's the first thing that came in my mind when you said that.
The term student athlete is often used to describe a student also engaged in athletics who demonstrates excellence in both areas. Just over 50 years ago, a true student athlete emerged from Sydney High School as the salutatorian of the class of 1963.
The class that I was in was the first class to go through Sydney High School in the new school. We were sophomores when it opened, so we're the first class to go all the way through the school.
At 6 feet 8 inches tall, Tom Glover towered over both classmates and basketball opponents and was widely recruited by big-time college programs, including Ohio State, which had recently won a national title and had been in 2 other NCAA championship games.
Tom received a full scholarship and headed to Columbus. Though an injury cut short his basketball career, Glover's academic pursuits led him to accomplishments that have landed him in the Sydney City Schools Hall of Honor class of 2014.
He earned his Bachelor of Science in Zoology in 1967, the first of his trio of OSU degrees. His master's was in genetics, and his doctorate was in population genetics. To conclude his time in Columbus, he taught biology for 1 year. In 1972, Dr. Glover began a lengthy tenure at Hobart and William Smith Colleges in New York, where he did teaching and research in multiple biological areas as he developed a specialty in those fields related to agriculture, ascending to the level of professor of biology. His work is widely published, and his biostatistics textbook is in use worldwide.
He also served as liaison to the New York State Agricultural Experiment Station of Cornell University, where he was appointed an adjunct professor of entomology.
When I retired, they got together and put together a scholarship in my name. To me, that was a real mark of respect by them and appreciation for what I tried to do for them.
As a professor emeritus, he remains active in his field.
Tom Glover is the first member of the 1963 graduating class to be elected to the Hall of Honor, and their 50th reunion helped launch his candidacy.
I'm very touched that my classmates would take the time and energy to nominate me and think that I was worthy of it.
Glover and his SHS classmate wife, Emily, reside in Geneva in central New York State, which boasts of being the lake trout capital of the world. The Glovers are active in the Geneva community, including volunteering at the Center of Concern, a thrift shop and food pantry for low-income families.
I've had awards in the past, but this is pretty special.
The mission statement of the Sydney City Schools Hall of Honor cites a goal of recognizing those whose life story can be inspiring to current students. Irv Johnson, SHS class of 1958, definitely meets that portion of induction criteria.
I've always been had strong feelings that any kind of education that they can get. In this day and age, just a high school diploma is not going to do it either.
Irv grew up in a closely knit family where everyone did their part for the common good. He held a job beginning at age 8. After graduation, he put himself through welding school. In June 1961, he was burned in a welding accident and decided to ponder a career modification.
Johnson was married to classmate Dottie Bodine in early 1963, took a cram refresher course in English from his wife and from SHS teacher Mrs. Jean Blust, and entered Miami University in June of that year. Less than 3 years later, he rode the Dean's List to graduation in industrial education and began his teaching career. A master's would follow at Ball State. He taught briefly at Hamilton Garfield in Ohio and Union City in Indiana before moving to his current home of Yuma, Arizona.
From 1969 to 1996, he taught metal trades at Kofa High School. For 25 years, he was Kofa's metal trades advisor for their chapter of the Vocational Industrial Clubs of America, and guided his students to state and national awards.
His retirement was official, but not actual. He continued in the classroom as a substitute teacher and worked long-term assignments in special education to address that social need. Irv has also promoted the GED program for those who didn't finish high school. In 1996, he was chosen as one of the 10 local heroes who carried the Olympic torch through Yuma on the way to Atlanta.
He lost his wife in 2012. His late wife nominated him for the Hall of Honor prior to her passing. Dottie Johnson closed his nomination with a tribute to his roots by proudly stating, "Even today, Irv Johnson credits being born and raised in Sydney as the key to his success." Many fabrics are woven through the composition of the Sydney City Schools Hall of Honor. The sciences are very well represented, even including a Nobel Prize winner. 1957 graduate James Wells had a love of science inspired by SHS teacher Pop Royan that led to engineering degrees from both Purdue and Cincinnati, along with a stellar career in the public and private sectors.
I was a member of the band, and we went to Washington, D.C. for the Cherry Blossom Festival. And I don't know, 1955 or 56, something like one of those years. And the band did very well. We won a trophy for our in the marching competition, and had a very good time exploring the Capitol. So that was a very memorable time.
When the former Eagle Scout first entered the job market, the lure of the newest frontier sent him to a position with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, in Huntsville, Alabama. Wells worked on propulsion systems that would eventually take Apollo astronauts to the moon.
Jim departed NASA in 1966 and headed to a quarter century in research and development with Cummins Engine in Columbus, Indiana. The Cummins experience spawned a major opportunity with the Southwest Research Institute in San Antonio, Texas, where he managed 70 employees in their diesel engine testing laboratory and also led numerous company committees.
Retirement in 2005 saw him move back to Indiana to be closer to family while running his own consulting business. Jim and his classmate wife, Nancy, reside in Carmel, Indiana, and are the parents of 3 grown children.
We'd like to thank the Hall of Honor Committee for giving us at SHS TV Productions the opportunity to tell the stories of this year's Hall of Honor inductees. We've truly been inspired by their stories and look to take these lessons learned into account as we forge our own paths to success.
We've learned there are differences to be made, both here and afar, with the knowledge and experience we've gained from Sydney High School.
On behalf of the TV Productions program, faculty, and students at Sydney High School, we would like to congratulate this year's inductees into the Sydney High School Hall of Honor.